Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Ben Bateman.
And I'm Andrew Guy.
And we are the Action Guys. Yes.
I heard those jerks on Collider Live made fun of us for that.
Roxy is the one that did it.
Well.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. We are here to talk to you guys today about things in the action universe because this is the Action Guys. Today's episode is we are going to be talking about the greatest movie trilogies of all time. John Wick 3 just hit theaters. Drew and I did a review of it on Action Movie Anatomy, our other show over on Popcorn Talk. We decided to break up the greatest trilogies of all time into 3 categories.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of definitive rankings, and we thought about doing a definitive ranking of trilogies, but honestly, that just feels like it'd be dirty, messy. We'd probably piss off a lot of people. So I think these 3 categories that we've broken them into are pretty interesting. So we've got the cream of the crop, which are the true greatest trilogies of all time.
The ones you guys would probably expect to be there, and that'll be the one we end with. It'll be the sort of the most staple version of this conversation. The second category, it's the underrated category.
Yeah.
So these are trilogies that we think are actually pretty fantastic. We really, really like them a lot, and we think that they don't get as much love as they should necessarily. And then finally, of course, we have the never needed a sequel. These movies should have been one. They should not have made a second and a third. They did for whatever reasons they did, but looking back on it, the world would have been a better place if we only had one movie in each franchise. And we're going to do each of these lists.
Yeah, and just to let you guys know, kind of an update what's going on, we have now moved completely to audio here at Collider. So if you want the full video, it will be available on the Action Industries YouTube page, or you can also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/teamaction, and the videos will be uploaded, the full video, the exact same day that you can find this episode on the Collider Movie Talk podcast channels, which you can get on Apple One, Podcast One, any audio, even Spotify. You can find us there for full episodes.
Yeah. So on the Collider podcast feed for a Movie Talk, it's where you're going to find the audio, as he said. And then, we release the full videos early for patrons at the $5 level, patreon.com/teamaction. If you guys want these videos day of full video, otherwise the following Tuesday, they always come out and they're just totally free. So We've got a whole catalog of old episodes there you guys can find. If you want to follow along in the conversation, you can find me personally at Ben Bateman Media.
You guys can find me at Andrew Guy.
You can find the show at Team Action Show. And then, there's the YouTube and the Twitter and all the things. We do have Brandon Hanna, creator of the Film Physics segment, and the intern and also the associate producer of both the Action Movie Anatomy and the Action Guys, sitting at the table here. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great.
You thought I was going to throw a big thing at you there, didn't you? You were waiting.
What is the square root of pi, Brandon? Yeah. Brandon, do you have a favorite trilogy of all time?
Lord of the Rings.
It is?
It's your favorite?
It's your number one?
Interesting.
Return of the King is my favorite film of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because that's funny, because for me, I actually think that Fellowship is my favorite.
Me too.
I actually think it goes in order. I think Fellowship's my favorite, then Two Towers, then Return. I do love Return, and I cry every time I watch it.
I have a really hard time when I watch Two Towers and Return of the King differentiating which one I like more now. But clearly, for me, Fellowship's my favorite of the 3.
I just can't get over Theoden King.
Yeah.
Theoden King stands alone.
Yeah.
Not alone.
And my bow.
And my bow.
So anyway, that's a different conversation for another time.
It sure is.
So that is today's conversation. We are going to get fully into it, I think, starting now. Is there anything else that we wanted to share? Any other shout-outs?
No, I think this is it. I mean, you and I are just coming off of a very heated weekend in Houston, and we actually don't know who won yet because we're pre-taping this because we're going to be in Houston. So I think without further ado, we just hop into the first segment, which I think we should do the never needed because of John Wick.
Yes.
And I want to start it off with John Wick as our number one never needed because the first one's so good.
Yeah.
It's so great. It's in the 90s. It was a shocking surprise for me. I'd heard Keanu was doing another action movie. I heard it was kind of what...
I didn't even hear about this before it came out. It just came out.
Yeah, well, so that's what I mean. It was after it had come out. I'd heard that he's in it. I heard it was entertaining enough. And then I looked and I saw it had insane scores on Rotten Tomato, and I was just not convinced. I was against it.
People forget already that, he had literally, prior to this, done The Man of Tai Chi and 47 Ronin. So, it was oh, I don't have to pay any attention to what Keanu Reeves is doing. I literally don't have to care. And I think the issue for us here is not that the first John Wick's not awesome, and not that 2 and 3 don't have...
They're all sweet.
Incredible shit, because 2 and 3 really do.
Yeah.
It's more I don't like what they did with 2 and 3 enough for me to justify having spent the time and energy watching them. I got enough of John Wick and the best parts of what make those movies good in the first movie. Because all the world building they do in 2 and 3, it's not really much of a payoff. It's just really excessive action. And most of the extra stuff with like Larry Fishburne and all that's just like.
And even though Halle Berry does a great job in the movie, I don't actually think she's necessary. And you made a really strong point about cutting both of them out of the story to make the movie about an hour and 40.
Yeah.
And I think that would have made this the next best film in the trilogy.
Yeah.
And it would have made it so that I would have been happy that there is a trilogy, and now there's probably going to be a fourth installment.
But we stand alone here as the people that felt pretty mediocre on this movie because the ratings.
95?
Yeah, and honestly, it should be pointed out here. These are just our opinions. It's based on what we like. This is not the greatest ranking. This is like literally the greatest according to the Action Guys. So number 4 on here is the Karate Kid, and I realize there's 5 total Karate Kid movies, but the original trilogy with Ralph Macchio, that's the original trilogy. And again, it's not really so much that 2 and 3 are horrible movies because they're fine.
I actually like 2. It's fun.
He goes to Japan.
Yeah.
And and 3, right? Like that's the Terry Silver one where he gets trained by Mike Barnes and all that, and Kreese comes back. But the original Karate Kid's great. It's like a great movie.
It's a true classic.
Yeah, Pat Morita was nominated for a friggin' Oscar. That movie's
wax on, wax off is something that I feel like you could even still say now to the younger generation. They'd be like,
sweep the leg. I mean, there's just the sheer number of things that have come out of the first Karate Kid, and I'm like, I'm watching Cobra Kai.
I was gonna say, especially because Cobra Kai is doing well.
I love Cobra Kai, but like, and obviously all those second and third movies, which on their own don't stand as great, they serve as a lot of like really good fodder for for the Karate Kid TV series. But yeah, I just think that original movie there was nothing gained by making 2 and 3 really, other than now we get Cobra Kai. But for years it was just like.
Well, and here's the thing too: is every single movie on this list had to have a sequel.
Right.
It was too popular. It made too much money for the studios to not do it. So it makes complete sense. And you'll see that here with number 3, which is kind of like the most studio created baby ever, which is Ocean's 11 and the whole trilogy that comes with 12 and 13. You've got literally every person who is the most famous. It's a Marvel movie back in the day, in the sense of the most famous people in the world being all in one place.
I mean, they remade a movie from the 60s that had been just a fine movie with Sinatra and Sammy Davis, and they're like, all right, so and now we'll make it again with Brad Pitt and George Clooney and Matt Damon, and like it's a big cast. And the first one's really sweet. We covered it on Action Movie Anatomy a year or two ago, and it's really fun. I love that first movie. But then
it's cool, fun, it's sexy.
It's Julia Roberts. I mean, but then like 12 and 13, they just feel like just. Here, play in the sandbox.
Yeah,
like, just
exactly.
do another heist and like add some more famous people and like add Catherine Zeta-Jones, add Bruce Willis.
And have Bruce Willis play himself, right? Or something like that.
It was like being a little too clever, and just when you go back, it's like, I don't feel the need to ever watch 2 and 3 ever again. Speaking of which, number 2.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take this one from you because I just recently was invited on Sending the Wolf with Clark Wolf, and I covered The Matrix, the original Matrix.
Yeah.
The idea is that you take from the AFI Top 100 lists, because there's a handful, like 100 thrills, 100 laughs, 100 movies, period. And The Matrix was my choice. I love the first Matrix. It's so freaking beautiful and amazing, and it blows your mind, and it's so groundbreaking and revolutionary at the time. And 2 and 3 had to happen because us, as I think, culture would have rioted if we didn't get at least the next film, because it was just so much.
Yeah.
But they're not that good. You haven't even seen the third one,
no,
right?
I saw the second one in theaters, I remember, on a midnight screening because I loved the first one so much.
Reloaded.
Yeah. And I fell asleep because it was late. Yeah. And I never watched it again. I remember the architect stuff at the end.
And twins.
And Zion and all that. I just never watched 3. And I just didn't feel like I needed to. And to this day, I don't really feel like I missed much. Most of the CGI that was groundbreaking then is just like they do at the end of every superhero movie now.
I mean, well, the thing is, too, is that like the CG of the 100 Agent Smiths in the third one looks really bad now.
So the funniest piece of trivia about Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, and I'm going to ask my intern here, Brandon Hanna, in case he knows this, but I would guess that neither of you guys know this. Do you know what year they came out in?
Which years they came out in?
Yeah.
2003 and 5?
Well, I know that the second and third one came out in the same year, I believe.
That's the trivia.
Is that what it is?
How friggin' weird is that?
Was it 2004?
2003,
Okay.
Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions. 4 years after the original film, the 2 movies came out in the same calendar year. I can't think of another example of that ever happening.
Totally forgot about that.
I didn't even remember until recently.
Yeah.
I was like literally looking at years, and I was like, that's weird. That's got to be a typo.
2003, right? Yeah, and then the final one on the list.
And the final one on the list is Jurassic Park, where there's actually been 5 films now, but really the original trilogy is 3 films. You know,
And then it
Sam
took a
Neill comes back.
long time.
And Jurassic Park 1 is one of the greatest films ever made. It's like a true classic. It's amazing. It's, you know, like I know that Spielberg was thinking at the time if he wanted to make a Jurassic Park trilogy or a Schindler's List trilogy, and he decided, just kidding, that never happened. He decided to make the Jurassic Park trilogy. Andrew didn't even laugh.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a very important thing.
And did you hear the joke?
No, you want to say it again?
Yeah, I'll say it again. I'll see if I can laugh at him. I was like, it's not gonna, because now the setup. I was like, Spielberg was talking at the time about whether he wanted to make a Jurassic
the
Park
Schindler's
trilogy.
List thing.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I did hear it, but I was like, is that real?
He, just for you on audio, had Andrew not been texting, he would have laughed, guaranteed. I know his sense of humor too well.
I'm sorry.
Jurassic Park 1 is just one of the best movies ever, and 2 is bad. It has a couple sweet parts. 3 is horrible.
Yeah, they're both they both like drop right off the cliff. Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, it's Jurassic Park, The Matrix, Ocean's 11, The Karate Kid, and John Wick. So you understand why they had to make more films.
Yeah.
We just don't really believe they should have. We actually have 3 honorable mentions here.
Yeah. So honorable mention number 1 is going to be the Hangover trilogy.
Yep, it was fine enough. First one's good. The next one is Taken. You know, I felt like, what movie is it where they're like, at some point you just got to think he's a bad father?
Yeah.
It's like, that's exactly the moment where you're just like, you've lost your family 3 times now. Like, I don't care anymore, bro.
Well, and I also like that the premise of John Wick 2 and 3 is like this really convoluted thing about like, the plotting, and it's like, my family was taken again. What happens in the third film, Liam? My family was taken a third time.
A third time.
A third time. Yeah. I came back to do the film.
You're really bad at being a father / husband. And then the last one I love that we put on here, it's Thor Ragnarok.
Because just you don't actually need the first 2 movies.
Yeah. Ragnarok is by far and away the best. But the first 2 are arguably 2 of the worst MCU films.
We don't have a lot of time, so I just want to keep this brief. But just this has to be noted. I was talking to our good buddy Matt the other day, and he's the AD on Endgame, and he was like, there was 2 really big spoilers going into Endgame that we just needed to keep a secret. He was like, I was like, the hammer? And he's like, no, that was really cool. That wasn't like a spoiler. He was like, one of them was Tony dying.
Yeah.
And he's like, the other one was Fat Thor. He was like, it was so important we kept that a secret.
Yeah.
It was like the most important spoiler in the movie. And it's like so funny that in the end that's the thing they were protecting. It's like, we put Chris Hemsworth in a fat suit.
And we need no one
for a
to
lot
know.
of the movie, and no one can know.
Yeah.
So the promotional campaign cannot feature it. You get you're going to be put in jail if you talk about the fact that Fat Thor's in this movie.
There's and then in the trailers you can see there's like only from like the neck up shots of him, or like from very wide.
Do they show like Lightning Thor at any point in the trailer?
Do they maybe show him?
Maybe they
once
show
he's Lightning Thor, I think.
But maybe they show him like in the first part of the movie when they go to kill Thanos, but not at the end.
Yeah, I know they show this shot with him, Iron Man, and Captain America all walking out towards Thanos, but they CGI'd out.
I was gonna say
Mjolnir.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, and they only see like his
Right.
legs, so you can't tell that he's in a fat suit.
That's
so
amazing.
funny.
I love it.
Anyway, all right, moving on to category number 2 here, guys. We're going to get into the underrated trilogies. These are the trilogies that we think are just outside the cream of the crop. They're like really, truly awesome, but not quite good enough to be on that list. And number 5 is a fun one.
Yeah, I definitely love this. It's the Star Wars prequels.
And it's really just on the back of the final 40 minutes of Revenge of the Sith.
And also the first, maybe the last 30 minutes of Phantom Menace.
Oh, yeah. The Darth Maul stuff with
fight,
Liam Neeson.
and
Right.
Ewan. It's really sweet. Attack of the Clones is just real bad.
He's like, Qui-Gon is like, he's like, Annie, your mother's been taken.
Yeah, I mean, so we're probably going to get skewered for this, but I love the end of Revenge of the Sith. I love Darth Maul, and you got to remember, we were 10 when these were coming out, so it was
first
like
one, yeah.
It was just
11.
We were very excited more than anything.
Toys, the whole thing. I mean, the double lightsaber, like
I had the Darth Maul poster that I'd gotten from like a Happy Meal or something, and I was like so happy that it was hanging on the back of my door.
yeah, oh yeah, totally. The second one's really horrible. I haven't gone back to watch it in a long time, but I have actually watched Revenge of the Sith a shockingly high number of times. I don't know why.
Because it's sweet.
Yeah. But I do like it. So number 4 on the list, underrated, it's going to be Spider-Man, the 02 to 07 Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, the third one's pretty horrible.
There's a consistent trend with a lot of these trilogies. It's like almost if we were to say like you could only put movies on these lists that had complete trilogies in terms of quality, it really reduces the number of options. There's not that many trilogies that have 3 good movies.
Yeah, it's kind of just like the top half of this category and then basically most of the cream of the crop.
Because very often the third movie in these things or the second movie will end up being disappointing and like revisionist history will go back to talk about that movie's actually pretty good. But like, for instance, teaser, the Dark Knight trilogy is somewhere either between the honorable mentions and the top of the top list. And like when Rises came out, it was kind of just disappointing for a lot of people. It's only now in retrospect, a few years later, people are kind of willing to acknowledge it's a good movie.
I watch Rises more than the Dark Knight now.
I love Rises.
I love Rises.
Me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy. So with Spider-Man, it's one of those things where Spider-Man 1 is very well respected. Spider-Man 2 is arguably, to some people, one of the best, if not the best Spider-Man movie, period.
Right. Yep.
And then Spider-Man 3 is just kind of rough with the whole emo Toby, and then a big part of that, wasn't it like Sam Raimi getting back at the studios
something
or something
like that? Yeah, dancing Toby in that scene is probably one of the most embarrassing things that happened in the 2000s.
But it is honestly one of the greatest things to ever happen to Spider-Man.
Because of the Spider-Verse.
Yes, they can make fun of it.
He makes fun of it. When he's doing the move with like the hands and like the pelvic thrusting, it's like kind of absurd that they were like, yeah, that should make the final cut.
We'll leave that in.
Like nowadays, if like there's like a frame out of place in an MCU movie, like hire the entire cast and send them back to Austria to shoot.
We need like $5 million more for every hour, and we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, we're gonna need to spend another $22 million so we can get this turn and like just change this shot. And it's like that's not how it used to work.
Next up, we have Planet of the Apes, the brand new.
No. That's higher. That's higher.
Shoot! I'm so sorry. Yeah, the next one was actually Austin Powers trilogy.
Yes.
It's so funny because I hadn't talked about this trilogy much at all, but in the last week, it's been brought up maybe 5 or 6 times.
Well, Austin Powers 1 is a legitimate classic. It's a late 90s. Good. Like I remember growing up watching it, and like, I mean, come on, it's Austin Powers. Like
I would like piss myself laughing watching these.
It's really funny. And
Will Ferrell getting shot and burned and all that.
The whole thing, like him, Dr. Evil. I mean, really true. This was like a phenomenon. The first Austin Powers, and honestly, Spy Who Shagged Me with Heather Graham,
excellent,
also great,
so good.
When I was a child, if I had watched Spy Who Shagged Me and known that I could go watch her nude in another movie called Boogie Nights, I probably would have lost my mind.
Oh,
I didn't
was
realize
so in love with her.
I didn't know that existed at the time when I was 11 years old.
Right.
I was not aware. I was not made aware until I was much older.
I think every guy our age was just, there's like a handful of women in film that we just all fell in love with, and Heather Graham in this, Cameron Diaz in The Mask.
Yeah.
There's like a few moments where it was just like every guy just lost
She's
it.
also hilarious in this movie.
She's very funny.
Because I think Heather Graham's a really good actress. Generally, she's like pretty solid in like almost everything she's in. Throwback to The Hangover, she's great.
Yeah.
But she's really good at this movie. But like, yeah, just totally in love. Just completely in love. So
That's funny. She's in The Hangover trilogy.
Yeah. And then Goldmember, which I only honestly saw the one time at theaters, but I remember thinking it was hilarious.
I actually like Goldmember too. Like, it was one of those things where
Yeah, I love
gold. It was the thing where Goldmember wasn't as sweet as Fat Bastard was.
Right.
But he was still awesome. And then at the very end, they have like TC Legend coming in as a cameo and doing the actual Hollywood film. I mean, it's not as good, but it's still sweet. Like, I remember as a kid, there's the moment where they're pulling stuff out of the bag in the tent, and all the security guards are watching, and it just looks like they're pulling everything out of Austin Powers' ass.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm 31 now, so it's probably not as funny. But, like, as a kid, that shit slayed me. I was dead.
Oh my God, amazing. So number 3 on the list, we have the new Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Or 2, that's 2, because I spoiled the...
Yes, number 2, we have the new Planet of the Apes trilogy. So that's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and War for the Planet of the Apes. War of the Planet of the Apes? War for? I can't remember. But these movies are great. We owe the entirety of the series being good to the brilliance of Andy Serkis. He's so good.
He's so compelling and engaging as Caesar, and he's so believable, and honestly, you love him.
I honestly think that it's totally possible this deserves to be number 1, just thinking about it as we talk about Caesar. But I think the quality that we get out of the number 1 is so high that like, but I love the Apes trilogy.
He actually carries a whole trilogy, and no one really pays the respect to him. They pay it to James Franco, Woody Harrelson, Jason Clarke, all these, but it's not Gary Oldman. It's not about them.
Yeah,
it's Caesar's story.
What's Carrie Russell in the second one, and the girl from Slumdog Millionaire who like Frida Pinto.
Yeah, Frida Pinto.
Yeah, that's like the whole
The first one, yeah.
Yeah, it's and for some reason I always remembered Mila Kunis being in it. She's not.
No, I love Frida Pinto.
Yeah, me too.
Uh,
And number one, you've got the Captain America trilogy.
Yeah, and it was, you were saying that you thought this belonged in the cream of the crop section, which I actually believe it does.
Yeah.
But the thing is I feel like if you ask 10 people their top 3 trilogies, it's never mentioned.
No, never.
Or even if they're top 5 trilogies, it's probably still not mentioned because you don't really think of it as a trilogy.
It's because Civil War feels like an Avengers movie, and the
Exactly.
first Captain America is like not really a movie that you go back to rewatch. So, I mean, Brandon, what was the last time you watched each of these movies?
Civil War, probably the most recent.
Yeah.
Just catch it on like Netflix or something.
Yeah, right, because it was on there for a
the
while.
airport scene's so sweet.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just
yeah.
go to
Yeah.
that.
When's the last time you think you watched First Avenger?
That's been years, probably.
I watched it last year. I watched all of them last year for not for the first time. I watched as they came out, but I mean, Winter Soldier is the best movie, like that and like Infinity War.
Yeah.
And like Winter Soldier is just so good, but it's just really for me the reason that these movies are so good is like I find the scenes from Winter Soldier and Civil War to be like a lot of the most memorable scenes from the MCU. Like a lot of the most memorable shit comes in those two movies.
Well, it's because they really figured out how to make Captain America a true badass superhero, and then it was almost like, oh, they figured it out. Now we know how to place him in all the other movies.
Yeah.
Now we know how to make him look awesome. We know how to make Black Panther be more badass, Bucky more badass, Scarlett Johansson. It
Yeah.
was like they kind of figured out the formula for the humans, if you will.
And honestly, Cap 1 is really solid because like his relationship with Haley Atwell in that movie is really good. Like it's
I really don't remember it.
as the plane's going down at the end and he's talking to her and he's like, he knows that he's gonna die, actually just go into hibernation,
Right.
And he's like, how about you still owe me that dance? Like they're going down. There's like 30 seconds left. It's really compelling. I teared up when I watched it recently.
Was Red Skull whatever in it?
He's sweet. I mean,
Is he?
Hugo's
I know.
fine.
The whole thing sucks about Hugo just like not wanting anything to do with it.
Yeah,
It's so weird.
It's strange.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
So now, guys, we're going to get into our top 5 cream of the crop. And number 1, as Ben said, it was somewhere in the list. It's the Dark Knight trilogy. Kind of surprising it's down at 5th, but if you look at the 4 in front of it, it does make a little bit more sense because, I love Batman Begins. I think it's actually the most complete movie in the trilogy.
We covered that recently on AMA, right?
Yeah, I think so. Probably a year ago. And then The Dark Knight is considered the greatest comic book movie of all time,
Right.
although who knows now with Endgame and Infinity War. And then Rises, as you said, is now starting to fall into revisionist history as being better than it was. But on a whole, go ahead.
Yeah. I think on the whole, it's regarded as like one of the most instrumental films in the superhero genre. I think that the villains are usually regarded as really good.
Yeah.
Like honestly, all 3 of the main villains are really solid. Anne Hathaway's Catwoman is terrific. Bale plays a great Batman. Like
The supporting cast of Cillian Murphy and Morgan Freeman,
Michael
and
Caine.
they're all amazing.
yeah, I mean, we all love Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
do
we
your line.
sure
do
do.
the line you want to do.
There's so many of them. God damn it, Harvey! I know these briefs backwards.
That's what I was looking for.
That's what I hate that line. Yeah, but I mean, I guess there's just something about it, and there's obviously the Godfather trilogy is in the top 5. It has to be, but I don't know. It's like the strength of the first 2 Godfathers outweighs the middle ground of all 3 Dark Knight. I don't really.
So it gets
they're not-
moved higher.
Yeah.
I actually do love the moment when Gyllenhaal is like sitting there and she's like, "Okay, Harvey, okay," like she's like, "It's gonna be okay," and then the thing just
When
blows
she's
up.
out. Yeah, it's so good.
It's a good moment because it's like unsuspecting.
Well, you don't expect. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like that doesn't happen in comic book movies.
Nah, it was
you
sweet.
know,
God, I love that movie.
so dark. Yeah.
Number 4 is the only to be a trilogy for a little while longer, and that is Toy Story. Now you can make arguments for Toy Story actually just being the top spot here because the quality of all 3 movies is so high.
Like if you actually go to the ratings section on any site, they're like basically perfect, all 3 of them.
And I watched all 3 recently, and they're all solid.
I cried at the end of 3.
Yeah, Toy Story 3, I was disappointed that when I went to do my Pixar Revisited, it was like that it was it had been so hyped for me at that point because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I got to enjoy Toy Story. Like I saw it in theaters, but then when on the rewatch, I was like, I'm expecting too much. This is just a really good Toy Story movie.
Very complete. Yeah, so many people coin it as the best Toy Story movie ever.
The best Pixar movie.
The best Pixar movie, the best animated movie. It's tough because in my mind, I still think 1 is the best.
One's just a lot simpler. 3 like really just pulls on the heartstrings. 2 has great scenes too, like When She Loved Me, which is the scene where Jesse gets left, is heartbreaking. And 2, you know, like all 3 of them are really good.
Next up we have the Godfather trilogy, and you know, this is one of those films that I've only seen the Godfather 1 and 2 once each. And I don't think I've ever seen Godfather 3 because I've just heard nothing but bad.
It's sort of Godfather 3 is like sort of fine. It's not as bad as people make it out to be.
Is it just because it's following the 2 best movies ever?
And it's like it's just playing on like there's this quality to 1 and 2 that because of when they're made, they're 70s movies. They have this like color and tone that's just it's very appropriate for its time.
Right.
3 is made in like 1990, and it's like it just feels like a movie from 1990, and like the characters are all much older. And it's just
how long do they take to make the third one?
16
like
years.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's just and like originally somebody else was supposed to star in the Sofia Coppola role, but she got sick. I think it was Winona Ryder maybe, and then Sofia Coppola steps in, and she's so bad.
Is she a horrible actress?
Like a career-ending performance.
Wow.
It's. I don't know. Have you ever seen it?
I've never seen it, but I know
Of the
historically bad she is in the movie.
It's like it's appalling. Andy Garcia is pretty sweet. Like he gets introduced as like the new hotshot, but like 1 and 2 are, and I actually think they're the most enduring classics we have. Like Godfather 1 is the most enduring sort of top 10 classic movie that exists, I think.
Because you go back and you watch it today, and it still is like great.
And like Pacino is just the sheer presence.
Yeah.
When, you know, I mean, there's like these moments like, you know, like when Pacino goes and has his whole like thing with like Mo Green. You said you haven't seen it recently?
Talking about the second or the first one?
First one.
Yeah.
He has this whole thing with Mo Green and like, you know, and Mo Green's yelling at him or whatever because Fredo's like, you can't talk to Mo Green that way or whatever. And you know, Pacino pauses and he looks at him. He's like, Fredo, you're my brother and I love you, but don't ever take sides against the family again. Right. And you're like, God damn it, that's so good.
Yeah.
Like it just gives you chills when he says stuff.
And the second one is when he does the Fredo, you broke my heart.
Yeah, that's the exactly.
And that's like such a great scene. And
I
that
actually
call. It's like during a wedding, right, or something.
When he says that,
yeah, it's like
you broke my heart. It's like a big party, in like Cuba or something. There's an endless number of moments where Pacino is just like. He's just magnetic in a way that very few actors ever have been.
And you've got Brando with the cotton ball cheeks, just like kill. Like I've never seen an actor that actually I could just believe was 2 different people based off of one point in his career and based off another because he's so incredible. He
disappears. I mean, dude, and like Robert Duvall,
yeah,
like as he's so good. De Niro in the second movie, The Godfather. First 2 films are like. Of the quality that very few films ever reach. They're like better movies than I think almost any movie on this entire list.
Right. But it's about the trilogy. And so next up we have Star Wars, 77, 80, 83. I mean...
Yeah, you have Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi. What's your favorite of these, Brandon?
Empire.
Yeah. Most people's. You? I think you and I maybe have the same favorite.
Is it Jedi?
Yeah, Jedi's my favorite.
Jedi. I love all the Emperor moments.
Yeah, me too.
They just
Yeah, so great.
I know the Force. Yes,
I am the Senate. That's the wrong trilogy.
It's just. I mean, you know, it's hard to argue. They're 3 pretty perfect movies. The fact that you know all 3 of us could have had a different favorite, and none of us would have been offended by it. It makes sense.
I mean, there's so much that's been said about these movies that it's hard to even. But I love the original trilogy so much, and I mean, I think most people in their lives have watched these movies inadvertently more than almost any movie ever made. They're just the most discussed, replayed on cable, like discussed, revisited.
Pop culture, yeah.
I mean, if you are like 7 years old today, there is so much Star Wars talk that you are compelled to go watch these original 3 films in a way that almost these movies are from only within a few years of The Godfather, but there's nothing even close to that effect that would have on like an elementary school kid to go back and rewatch The Godfather.
Well, yeah, because the fact that Episode 9 is still about to come out. So if you're a 10-year-old right now and you see that and you become a Star Wars nut, that means there's still a whole nother generation behind us that are going to be influenced by their parents still. Not even just being nerd culture. It's still by their parents.
Right.
And this is almost 40 years. I mean, it is 40 years, 42.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And lastly... Brandon, what's our number 1 trilogy?
That would be the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
He really buried the lead there.
I know. I was thinking, if he says it, which I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
I mean,
not gonna lie.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
I like these movies the most.
I do too.
I like all three of them. Like the fact that the third movie is just as arguable as the best as the second and the first. The quality is outrageously high. The moments are heartbreaking. The performances are amazing. The storytelling is incredible. Even today, like 15 to 20 years later, the CGI still totally holds up.
So good. Everything is so good. Every character is incredibly believable. You've got, these people that weren't who they were yet. Orlando Bloom wasn't who he was yet. He was on his way, pretty well on his way. But Legolas and having pirates was just like, okay, you never got to worry about anything ever again. Aragorn being discovered. It was the first time anyone had really seen Vigo in that light.
Yeah.
It was just incredible, and I still, even this last Christmas, just watched all three of them in a row. And my family, my whole family, we all watched all three of them in a row. And there's not any three movies that I could convince all 20 people in my family to watch back to back to back.
So we actually did an episode a few years ago on Action Movie Anatomy over on the Popcorn Talk Network, our other show, that was our top fist bump moments from the trilogy. So we took all 8 hours of the three movies together and did our top 10 moments. We're actually going to be doing a specific hour-long Action Movie Anatomy revisiting the Fellowship of the Ring in just a couple weeks here. So go check that out on Popcorn Talk. And we're going to be doing a watch-along, which I think is going to be on the night of Sunday the
29th or something, or I can't remember what
it's
it was.
like. I think it's Sunday the 27th or 6th, 26th
of May.
May, yeah.
Sunday the 26th, I think, is when we're going to do it. We have to confirm that date, but go check that out if you guys want to do a watch along. It's on patreon.com/teamaction. We send out a private link for everybody there to do that thing. And so, join us in Houston. Actually, this is airing after Houston.
Yeah, so hopefully
thanks for joining us in Houston.
Yeah. And then just really quickly, a couple honorable mentions that we did not get to make the list. We got Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Let us know what your top trilogies are. Let us know what your favorite is. Let us know what we missed. Let us know where you don't agree down below in the comments on Action Industries YouTube page. And man, I really hope Houston went well for me.
Yeah, I think just because I forgot about those honorable mentions, the Back to the Future and Indiana Jones. It's more about what we, as the action guys, believe and love.
Yeah.
And neither of us are attached to that trilogy, either of those trilogies, as much as like the general film-going populace is. We love them.
Yeah, and they're great movies.
I don't think either one is a totally complete trilogy because I don't. And for whatever reason, Indiana Jones just doesn't speak to us as much as it does to a lot of people.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And honestly, yeah, it's the thing. It was if you put these 8 trilogies in front of us, we would have taken off those 3 each. And yeah, we love them, but just not as much as the other 5.
Yeah, so that's that. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Brandon, thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having me.
If you guys want to follow along with Brandon on Twitter, where can you find you?
At BrandonHannah07.
Sweet.
Nice.
You can follow me personally at Ben Bateman Media.
And you guys can find me at Andrew Guy. You can find the show at Team Action Show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye, guys.
Bye.